Today's guest interview, you definitely don't want to miss any of it. We have Chris Grant here from Clear the Shelf. We are so excited to have him on. He is probably the most knowledgeable person I know that deals with online arbitrage. So if this is something that you're interested in, this is definitely going to be a good episode for you. So Chris, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started selling on Amazon?
Yeah, absolutely. First, thanks so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate the opportunity. So I've been on Amazon for a little while. I don't know, it's 10 or 11 years. I lose track. I started actually by just wanting to figure out a way to make some money on the internet. And one of the reasons I wanted to do that is I was selling insurance. I sold insurance for 12 years in a small family agency. My boss, who was also my grandfather, he was very, very slow to embrace the internet. And it didn't matter how much I poked and prodded. It was kind of like, let's just pick up the phone and do things the old fashioned way. And I was like, well, okay, fine. If that's the way we're going to do things here, I'm going to figure out a way to make something on the internet for myself. And so I actually started drop shipping on eBay. And this was when it was maybe frowned upon, but it definitely was not against terms of service. I built that up to maybe $30,000 or $40,000 a month in sales. And the thing I really did not care for is that every night after work, I would go home and I would stay up until 2 a.m. fulfilling orders. I didn't have any idea that I could hire someone to help me out with it or anything like that. I was like, okay. I see that there's money here, but there's got to be a better way to make money on the internet with physical products. And so I started going down rabbit trails, and podcasts is actually the thing that introduced me to Amazon. I heard an Amazon seller on Pat Flynn's SPI podcast, and that led me to guys like Chris Green, and I just dove in. And of course, I started, like a lot of people do, at the thrift stores because I didn't have a ton of capital. And so I started selling books. And then when I started, it was still the Wild West on Amazon. So you could go and buy new products from the thrift store and you could get away with selling it. And so we had a bunch of really good flips. Everything from video games to we probably sold hundreds of adult diapers from the thrift store, which is a weird thing to find. And then that moved from, okay, this isn't as sustainable as I would like it to be. So we moved to retail arbitrage. And I started glad handing managers at stores and taking donuts and coffee to the folks at retail stores and kind of getting my way into the back of the store before clearance got out onto the floor. And I was like, this is awesome. I'm gonna crush this for the next 20 years. But then it was time to start a family. And I was like, well, I don't want to be out in the stores 12 hours a day and miss my kid walking or miss his football games. And so right around that time, people were really starting to talk about buying online and selling on Amazon. And so I dove headfirst into that and learned all the tools and the software and things like that. And I don't know, it became my passion. I don't know what about it scratched an itch for me, but something did. And now I've been there ever since.
Wow, that's a great story. Love all of it. Could you just briefly explain for those listening who might not be familiar with the term OA or online arbitrage, what that is exactly and how it relates specifically to your Amazon business?
Yeah, absolutely. So online arbitrage is really just the act of buying from an online store. And I'll say the ones that are common. There's Walmart, Target, Kohl's, places like that. And finding the opportunity to sell for a higher price on Amazon for whatever reason. Maybe it's a sale, maybe it's a clearance item, which I don't usually recommend because those are national clearance items. Or maybe it's just because the product doesn't sell quite as well on Kohl's, but over on Amazon, the marketplace is so much bigger that the demand increases the price of a product. And I mean, in a nutshell, that's all it is just buying low and selling high.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the, it's like the purest form of sales, honestly, that's what it's all about. Okay. So we have a lot of listeners who I feel like, they start out on like Poshmark or eBay, and then they want to dabble in something else. Maybe they want to add Amazon, but, something is preventing them from taking those first couple of steps, whether that's fear or confusion or lack of knowledge. If you could give 3 tips to someone who has not started selling on Amazon yet, but wants to, what would they be?
I don't necessarily think that selling on Amazon is that much different than selling on eBay or Poshmark. The fundamentals are the same. Whether you're sourcing at a garage sale or off of Facebook Marketplace, you're just wanting to find items that are undervalued in one market, and you're going to take it to a marketplace where the value is higher. And so those fundamentals are never going to change. Now, what is going to change is the amount of data that you can look at to make a purchasing decision. And it's very easy to become overwhelmed by looking at Keepa graphs for hours and hours on end, and you can get a little bit of analysis paralysis. But if you take a little bit of time to learn, that is all figure outable, is what I like to tell people. You verify there is demand, you verify that the price history is something where you can make a profit, and then you go for it. And what I always suggest is, just like with eBay, you're often selling one-offs. You find an item at a thrift store or at a garage sale, and it's just going to be a one-off item that you come across. On Amazon, you're going to have those opportunities, but then you're going to have opportunities where you can sell something for the next 2, 3, maybe even 6 months before the market on the price starts to erode and things like that. But what I always tell people is go very wide and very shallow. That way you can kind of hedge your downside risk and make sure that you're not going to, lose everything on one bad buy. And now that probably makes it sound simple. And I think that selling on Amazon is fairly simple. It's not easy, but the process is simple. And we just have to kind of get over the hurdle of allowing ourselves to make those good decisions.
That's the perfect answer, honestly.
Thank
It's
you.
amazing. I totally agree with that. And I think a lot of people get caught up in the analysis paralysis. I do that myself a lot. You can analyze things until you're blue in the face, but if you just need to take action sometimes and figure it out as you go. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And listen, I get it too. Analysis paralysis is why I don't have any PL products, and so it's definitely something that's hard to overcome, and it takes a while, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. All right. So the next thing I think new sellers seem to get stuck in or by is finding items to sell on Amazon. They might be gated in certain brands or categories, or not have like the best experience in sourcing these items. What would you say to someone that's new but having a hard time sourcing? They feel like they're gated and everything. They're just not finding a lot to sell on the platform.
Absolutely. This is one of the frustrating things about, getting onto Amazon. Amazon wants to make sure that the platform is as safe for the consumer as possible. And while that can be frustrating, especially to the new seller, in the long run, it is good for us because we want to keep the consumer on Amazon. What I always tell people is it's not necessarily the nicest thing, but I always tell people you got to embrace the suck. It does suck sometimes to go and find a product and it looks fantastic, and then you're about to pull the trigger and you're gated. But you just have to keep going. What I kind of show people in some of the things that we do is I show people that you need to use an aisle by aisle method. And that kind of applies to retail arbitrage, but you can do the same thing when you're doing online arbitrage. One of the things that I'll show people is I will literally go to a category and I'll have people throw out a category name. And I'll say, all right, we're going to choose this category on Target. And we're going to sit here and we're going to go through every single product until we find something that is both profitable and that we can sell. And it'll take a while, and there's going to be a lot of frustration. But over time, you're going to start seeing, okay, these are the things I can sell. And then you can get a little bit more targeted in what you're sourcing. And then as your account ages and matures, you'll be able to get ungated in more and more things. And it becomes a little bit easier as time goes on.
Yeah, I I love that. I think, a lot of people might try 5 or 10 products to see if they're gated in them, and they are gated in all of them. And then they kind of just like throw their hands up like, well, this sucks, this blows, whatever. I can't sell anything, instead of really hunkering down and going through every single item in that category, like you said, within like a certain store. That takes a lot of time and a lot of patience, and it's worth it if you put the work in, but you have to be willing to put that work in to get there.
Absolutely. I love the opportunity on Amazon. What I don't love is the fact that there are some people out there who sell it as 3 months from now you're going to have a Lambo. And I think the people who come into Amazon from those kinds of Instagram reels or TikTok ads or whatever it is, they're the ones who get frustrated the most. And I don't know. I want to be there to kind of pull those people out and kind of help them along the right path.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. So obviously you're specializing in online arbitrage, and you have an online arbitrage or OA challenge that you talk about on Instagram a lot. We've heard it's been very helpful for a ton of sellers on Amazon, especially newer people. Could you talk to us a little bit about what this program is, what the challenge is, how it works, and how it is helping sellers specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually why my voice is a little bit cracky today. Yesterday was our last and final day. And so it is 14 days straight of everything that I've learned over the past 10 years, showing people how to properly utilize Keepa, because Keepa, if you're doing arbitrage or wholesale, whatever you want to do, Keepa is king. It has all the data that we need. However, it is on the surface, it's simple to understand. But as you kind of mature as a seller, you realize that there are a lot of nuances. And so we go over all of those nuances for several days. And then we go into the sourcing methods, and we talk about the aisle by aisle method. We talk about reverse sourcing and allowing Amazon to speak to us and tell us what to go buy. And then we get into some automation tools. And then at the end, we try to kind of put a little pretty bow on it, and kind of how you can take all these things that you learn and you can layer them on top of each other to get really creative and find other product to sell, products where other people maybe aren't thinking about sourcing, so that we can stay away from the products that people call it price tanking. I like to call it rapid price erosion. I think that sounds a little bit better. But stay away from those products that are going to erode in price, so that we can, keep our bottom lines healthy. And so it's a great time. We have, surprisingly enough, we have a lot of laughs during the 14 days. We get to know each other a lot during the 14 days. And we go over so much information that I've been fortunate to learn from, people through the past 10 years. And it's been, I think, helpful. People tell me it's been helpful, but honestly, it's been very rewarding seeing people stay home and watch their kids walk for the first time, or, have a business that, is paying for kids' private school, or people retiring from jobs. That's been one of the most satisfying elements of it for me.
Yeah, that is really, really rewarding to be able to help other people, live the life that they've been wanting to live, but just weren't sure of how to take the steps to get to that point. So basically the OE challenge is like a 14-day Amazon boot camp, right?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. Okay. And it is every single day, no days off.
Okay. And how often do you run the challenge? Like how many times a year would you say?
We usually run it about 3 times a year. It's about once a quarter, and then we take Q4 off because sellers are busy that time of year.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So you are also the co-creator of IP Alert. I know personally, it's just so important to make sure that you're not listing items on Amazon that could be flagged as a high risk. You don't want your account to be suspended, of course. So could you talk to us about what IP Alert is and why all Amazon sellers should be using the tool?
Yeah, absolutely. So IP Alert came out of, it was an idea born out of a blog post. And a few years ago, there were several things that kind of all happened at once. One of the really weird things is that Amazon started selling under one of the names of their vice president, and so you couldn't see whether it was Amazon selling. And then right on the back of that, they started to allow brands to submit IP complaints against legitimate products that we have the legal ability to sell on the platform. And they still allow that. People can say, oh, hey, this is a counterfeit product without actually buying the product from you and checking it out. They can say that you're using copyright incorrectly or trademarks incorrectly. And so when my friend Nate, my business partner, he wrote a blog post all about that, because at the time when it was new, it was almost a nail in the coffin of your account. You were going to get suspended, with 1 or 2 IP complaints. It's not quite that deadly anymore. It's become a little bit easier. However, it's still a massive headache and a hassle, and still something that scares sellers. So right after he wrote that, I was like, this is a great blog post. I said, but who's going to keep this up while they're sourcing all day? And how are you going to make sure it's updated every single day? So we've got to turn this into a Google Chrome extension that'll just pop up while people are sourcing. And so we created IP Alert, and we started with that list of brands that we had sourced from sellers. And now what we do is we go out and we do our own research. Keepa a lot of times will give you some hints that IP complaints are happening. And we also allow sellers to submit IP complaints that they've gotten with proof. And then I personally vet every single one. And we don't just add brands. We also try to remove brands, because we know brands like Starbucks will start to file IP complaints. And they did this a couple years ago on mugs and tumblers, but they left all of their coffee alone. And then they stopped, and they just haven't done it ever again. So we don't want to keep sellers from selling products. We just want to keep them from having to go through the hassle of dealing with a complaint. And so we will even buy the products that we want to remove from IP Alert. We'll send them in, we'll test them out on our own account and see if we get IP complaints. And then if we don't, across, several different SKUs, then we'll remove that brand and try to make sure that everyone knows about that as well.
Okay. Wow. That is so important, I feel like. And, even though it's not as deadly as you put it to Amazon accounts now, it's definitely still something important that people need to be paying attention to. And like you said, it's convenient that it's all housed in one place and one Chrome extension to make it easier while you're outsourcing, so you're not making bad purchases as well. So Chris was nice enough to give us a code for you guys if that is something that you're interested in, obtaining for your Amazon business. We will link to IP Alert within the show notes and put the code as well. It's Daycheck for those that are listening, and that gives you a $30 discount to either the annual or the lifetime license, which is so nice of you. Thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate that.
Absolutely. And I should add, for anybody who's doing retail arbitrage, there is an app that you can put on your phone. So it's not just for the online arbitrage seller.
Oh, that's so convenient. That's amazing. Thank you. All right. We're going to switch gears just a little bit here. So you are producing a ton of content, running your own Amazon business. You have a family, Facebook groups, a blog, the OA challenge, that we mentioned earlier, your podcast, your own website. I mean, there's like a million things that you have your hands in right now. How the heck are you doing it all? Give us a breakdown of your day. What does this look like? Are you like waking up at 4:00 in the morning and going to bed at 2? Like, how do you schedule yourself?
Well, this morning I actually didn't wake up till 9:30. I slept in. Normally I get up so that I can take my son to school, so we've got to be up around 7:30. So nothing too early. I don't know. I don't keep a very rigid schedule. What I do is I'm fairly good at making sure that I'm working every moment that I possibly can without taking away from my family. Now, I don't have a whole lot of hobbies. My hobbies are working and reading, and that's really about it. Taking our son to football practice and whatever else he's got going on. That's all I do. Business has become sort of like a video game to me. It's fun, it's enjoyable. We get to, try new things and test out theories. And if it doesn't work, we get told pretty quickly by the marketplace. And if it does work, there is an easy way to know what the score is. We get paid. And so it's become just something that's kind of all consuming. I think about business, all the time. And then I do have a few people to help me. We have a team member who does some sourcing actually, I have two team members who do sourcing. One of them handles my tactical arbitrage account. The other one does some manual sourcing. I do have someone who helps me with our blog, and he will put the frameworks together, and I go through and make sure that everything's correct. And he's been excellent. But everything else, the podcast, I've actually got to show up for that. And I still do the editing on that as well. I don't have a good answer for this question. I just really enjoy working. Some people are like, where's Chris? My wife will say he's in his office. Like, I don't know. That's really it.
No, I think that's a good answer, because you're optimizing the time that you do have available to work. And making use of that time, I think, is something that a lot of people struggle with, myself included. I get distracted, too easily, instead of really focusing. If I have an hour, I need to really optimize that 1 hour to get as much done as I can and focus on the needle moving activities instead of just like kind of the busy work, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
We're going to do a couple like rapid fire questions for you. So what do you feel has been the biggest challenge you faced on Amazon in the last year, and how did you deal with it?
There's been two challenges. And one is we have seen an increase in the number of sellers on Amazon. And that's natural for any market where you can make money. Blue oceans become red over time. However, I've actually sort of reframed this as an opportunity. And the reason I say that is I see all these newer sellers coming in, and I see what, is being pushed on social media and what's being taught. And a lot of it is, stick to these products that fit A, B, and C. And I see a lot of people doing that. And then I see prices eroding and people complaining and everyone saying things are saturated. And so when people are zigging, I try to zag. And there have been opportunities in other places on the platform. I won't say what they are or anything like that, but there are still these massive pockets of opportunity, even though the business might need to look a little bit different. So that's been a challenge. One of the other challenges has been, and this is an annual thing, but Amazon usually tries to clean up the catalog in some way during Q2 and Q3 of the year. Last year it was really big on CPC documents for toys, especially for toys under 12. That still goes on. This year, it seems to be all the product listings that Amazon sellers have created under the generic brand. And of course, that becomes frustrating. But again, there are opportunities there when everyone's like, oh, I can't sell this product anymore because it's listed under the wrong brand. Well, you can usually find 2 or 3 other listings that actually match just by doing a little bit of work. And so I think the biggest superpower for an Amazon seller is to be willing to go 2, 3, 4 steps further than what your competition will, because there's going to be a lot out there.
Yeah, doing the things that other people won't do is going to get you to other places where they're not. You know what I mean? I really like that. That's amazing.
There's a great quote by a guy named Daniel Ludwig, and at one time Daniel Ludwig was the richest man in America. He owned some 200 businesses, but he says the further the frontier, the greater the fortune. And so I've really tried to stick to that. The further you'll take it, usually you can find some gold mines where people aren't looking.
That is a great little nugget right there. I love that so much. Okay. What is something that you feel a lot of sellers are missing in their Amazon business? Maybe it's consistency, hours log, creativity, something along, those lines.
I actually do think that it is consistency. I think that is the number one thing that separates people who end up being full-time from people who want it to be full-time but can't quite get there. You've got to front load a ton of work. There's a ton of learning. You've got to figure out the platform. You've got to figure out how to source. You've got to figure out how to prep, and so many other things. And the best way to get through that as quickly as possible is to have as many iterations as you can. I'm not necessarily a fan of the 10,000 hour rule that says you've got to put in 10,000 hours of work to become a professional. But I am a fan of the 10,000 iteration rule, where if you do something 10,000 times, you're going to be the top 1% in it. And the faster that you can get through those 10,000 iterations, the faster you can become the professional you want to be. And fortunately, it's pretty easy to do. You just have to stick with it every single day. That's why I tell people during the OA challenge, they're like, this is a lot. Like, we have to be here every day for 14 days. And I'm like, yeah, but there's a reason behind that, because I want you to keep at this for the next 14 and the 14 after that, because it will get you where you want to go much faster.
I agree with that. And the 14, you're like building the muscle, you're building the habit, and doing things over and over again repetitively. That's the key, I think,
Mm-hmm.
All right. If you had to pick one or two tools or maybe softwares besides IP Alert for a new Amazon seller, what would they be and why?
Well, what I tell people is the only tool that you absolutely must have and try to master as much as you can is Keepa. Everything else can be done manually, but Keepa is everything. There are ways to figure out whether a product sells and validate the product. There are ways to actually source with Keepa. The only thing it doesn't do is it doesn't really offer any sort of calculator or anything like that. Amazon does offer one of those for free. Outside of that, can I say two instead of just one? Is that okay? So I do like Seller Amp. It's a powerful tool, and of course everyone talks about it. But if you're going to do manual sourcing from stores, it's got a great feature that allows you to just kind of pull up Amazon results right in the sidebar, and it can save a ton of time from having to switch back and forth between tabs. Other than Seller Amp, if you want to automate your sourcing any type of way, and I know that gets a lot of a bad rap, but Tactical Arbitrage is really an excellent software, especially if you take the time to learn how to use it. There is a high learning curve, and I think that the people who say it sucks are the people who kind of quit about halfway through that learning curve. But once you kind of jump over that learning curve, it is an incredibly powerful tool.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think they have like a university or videos or a sequence of something that you can go through. Is that right? And
they do have some FAQs and things like that. But there's also this course out there called Tactical Arbitrage Academy. And that's really helpful. Now, full disclosure, I created Tactical Arbitrage Academy. So, but it really is a wonderful way to source, once you learn how to use it, and you can figure it out on your own. It just takes some time to figure out what buttons to press and what levers to pull.
Is there anything that you haven't done? That's not my next question. I'm just kidding. All right. So for your OA challenge, if someone's new as an Amazon seller, maybe they are just creating their account, or even if they're 6 months or a year in, how much money do you think someone needs to have set aside to do the OA challenge or to just start selling on Amazon in general?
Mm-hmm. So when we created the OA challenge, our goal was to, one, be best in class. And now our market for the OA challenge is it's not the person who's never sent in a box to Amazon. Now, we have plenty of people that come through and go on to do great things, even if they have never sent anything into Amazon. But I don't teach that. Amazon Seller University does a great job of that. And there's plenty of videos on how to create a shipment on YouTube. Our market is for the people who need to learn Keepa, need to learn sourcing better. And we've also had I just had a guy come through who said he learned several things, and he's doing 100,000 a month on Amazon. So we do have some larger sellers come through who are able to take some things away from it. When we talk about how much budget someone needs, the course itself, it's $297. We tried to make it best in class, but we also tried to make sure that money was not going to be a hurdle. And we did this because we looked at all the other things that were on the marketplace, the one-to-one mentoring and all these other courses. And I was like, you know what? We may not make millions of dollars doing this, but we're going to make a bigger impact because we're going to be able to help more people. For inventory, you can start with like $500, and I think you would be okay. It's going to be slower, and the more capital, the better. but somewhere between $500 and $1,000 for inventory is where I think kind of the sweet spot is to at least verify that this model works. And then after you have proven it to yourself and anyone else who you might have to prove it to, spouse, significant other, parents, whatever it is, there are other ways to get your hands on capital as long as you're responsible with it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So earlier, this kind of goes along with this whole train of thought. Earlier, you mentioned going wide and shallow with purchases. So if someone's doing a test buy, especially if they're newer, how much money would you recommend they invest in one item or ASIN, and how many or how many of those items do you think they should pick up for the test buy?
Great question. So I tell people that rather than thinking about products on Amazon as a lottery ticket to the next $5,000 or $10,000 in their bank account for one SKU, we need to think more about our products as kind of an exchange traded fund or something like that. So we put little pieces of our capital that's available to us in each one of these SKUs or products we sell on Amazon. I say no more than 3 to 5% on any one product. And typically my own test buys are between 6 and 10 units, depending on how much I'm allowed to source from a site at any one time. If you have enough capital, you can do that across 25, 50, 150 different SKUs. And you're going to just need to win 70 to 80% of those. And the other 20%, the price can erode where maybe you're not profitable anymore, but you are protecting yourself because you have all of these other products that are actually going to be profitable. And then you can learn from the ones that are not winners and go back and do it better the next time around.
Yeah, that's so important. I think a lot of times I think it's so hard when people get excited. They think they found like a golden ticket item or a BOLO or something hot in Q4, and they want to go all in and buy, all of them, 30, 40 off the shelf. And then they end up kind of stuck with some of those items if the price tanks or, whatever happens. Amazon hops on those, whatever the case might be. So yeah, that's really smart. I think 3 to 5% of your available money. I think that's a great advice. You have talked to us about Rev Roi, which is another something Chris has created. What the heck is it? How does it work? I found out about it when I was kind of perusing through your website. I'm really excited about it. I'm going to start using it. I'm big on cashback and kind of stacking anything that I can in order to lower my cost of goods. And this is like a really niche frustration for me. So talk about why it's going to eliminate that frustration for me.
Absolutely. When I started doing online arbitrage, and Rev Roi I created years ago, 6 years ago, maybe. As I was getting into online arbitrage, cashback was just as important back then as it is now. And so we're using discount gift cards to be able to, what I like to call manufacturing your ROI on your products. Part of the problem is that I had 6 different extensions installed, and every time I popped up Target or Walmart or whatever it was, and then I popped up Amazon, I had all of these extensions popping up and, flashing and, click here and get the best. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And so I was like, there's got to be a way that we can take all of this information and put it into one place that's not going to pop up in your face, that you can just click on when you're ready to use it and figure out where the best cash back is, where the best discount gift cards are. And then you can go through the portals manually. And that's all it does. You click on it on whatever page you're on, and it will tell you, if you're on target.com, here's where the best cash back is today. And then here's where the best discount gift cards are today, with a link that will take you directly to that marketplace. I heard someone just made a sale. Congratulations.
I wonder if that was mine.
I think so. Mine's in my pocket.
But that's all it does. I created that because I wanted to scratch my own itch. And then I was like, oh, well, now that I've created this, I've got to get it out to other people. And so for a while we sold it because I don't use any affiliate links inside of the extension. I would probably have made a lot more money over the years if I was smart enough to have done that. But about a year ago or so, a friend of mine was like, hey, listen, I want Rev ROI. I want to own Rev ROI. And I said, okay. And so I allowed them to buy it from me. And I said, but here's the thing, going forward, it needs to be free. And I don't know how I talked them into it, but I talked them into it. And so now it's absolutely no cost for everybody. And someone else now manages it and takes care of it. And I'm there for ideas and things when they need help. And I get to, kind of push it on people and say, hey, yeah, I am the creator, and here's why you should use this. So it was fun. It was a cool thing to create, because not only was I scratching my own itch, but I got to learn a new skill at the same time. I can't code my way out of a paper bag, but I was able to learn how to go out and find the talent who can take my vision and then turn it into a product.
Yeah, that's wow. I mean, what a valuable skill to have, all the things that you learned, and alleviating that frustration for people who do source or even shop online. Holy cow, man, it's so worth it. I'm downloading it today. I'm definitely going to take advantage of it. I'm so sick of even just like getting onto Poshmark. Every time I type in Poshmark or eBay, I have all these pop-ups coming up. It's like, holy cow, I got to clear my screen before I can even do like any research. It's insane. But so valuable to have something like that at our fingertips. What would you say is the biggest mistake, or maybe two mistakes, whatever you feel, that you think a lot of Amazon sellers are making these days? And what would you tell them to do instead, or some way that they could avoid making these mistakes?
I don't know. One of the things that I see is probably back to that going too deep too fast, because you're like, you validate a product and you're like, you know what, this is going to be awesome. It's a great product. I'm absolutely going to make money. But here's the thing on Amazon, especially as online arbitrage sellers, if you have found that product, it's very possible that I can find it and you can find it and everyone else can find it. It is possible to create moats and kind of make it a little bit easier to hold off the competition, but it's not something that you can absolutely guarantee. Like you might be, well, heck, you can't even guarantee it with PL. There are competition issues with PL too, but with OA, it's a lot easier. And then you'll see prices start falling and people getting worried that they're not going to sell out fast enough and they're going to be out of their money. And then that further erodes the price, just like it does in the stock market. We are emotional creatures and we make emotional decisions, no matter what market that we're in. And that happens all the time on Amazon. So, I guess out of that, there are really two things. Number one is you really should go a lot wider before you decide to start going deeper on products, just to protect yourself. And the second thing is try to detach emotion from your business and from your inventory as much as possible, which is difficult to do. It's a decision that we spent time on. We did all the work, we did all the analysis, and it gets very easy to treat every single SKU like one of our babies. But we've got to be able to pull back from that and say, no, this was an analytical decision, and I will make analytical decisions going forward in my business. And it will save you so much time and headache and allow you to make those iterations faster by removing the emotion.
Amazing. Completely agree. All right. How do you think that selling on Amazon has changed since you first started selling?
It has become much more mature. When I first started selling, I mean, it was the Wild West. Just about anything went. I'll give you a really good example here. I bought a sealed board game, brand new, from the thrift store, and we would send all of our products in, and not knowing any better, we would use what used to be called, or what is now called, manufacturer barcode. And so what that means is that our inventory would get commingled with everyone else's inventory on that particular ASIN. An item got sold. What ended up being shipped to the buyer was a used board game that was open, that was missing pieces. And of course, that was my very first negative feedback. That was also my very first feedback. And so back then, I could actually email the buyer. I could explain exactly what happened. The buyers would actually open their emails, and he responded and said, oh, I totally get it. I would refund him. I said, hey, listen, if I refund you, will you then remove that feedback? And that was totally fine. That kind of thing is all against Amazon terms of service these days. And so there have become a lot more rules, and you do need to, I think, not just think of yourself as a reseller, as a flipper to be on the Amazon marketplace. You have to think in more of an entrepreneur or a founder mindset. You need to be willing to build processes. You need to be willing to, have KPIs in your business. And you just need to be much more of a business owner to succeed long term. Now, of course, we're going to start as flippers, as resellers, and we've got to learn our way through. Not only do you need to learn how to source, how to sell, how Amazon works, but you also need to learn how to be a proper business owner just to make sure that you're going to survive long term.
Yeah, so important. Absolutely. All right. Kind of going on from that a little bit, how do you feel that online arbitrage specifically has changed since 2020?
Since 2020. So 2020 was a great year for all things arbitrage. Of course, we had a pandemic. We had these lockdowns. Everyone was at home. They were baking bread. They were hanging out with their kids. It was incredible. So the biggest thing that's changed since 2020 is the deals are not going to be as prolific as they once were. At least not all the time. There will be deals that pop up here and there, maybe due to virality or a supply chain issue, but they're not going to be as abundant as they were in 2020.
I've heard you mention before, kind of like thinking outside of the box, that whole idea. And earlier in the episode, you even mentioned, I think you said you zig when others zag, if I am quoting you correctly, when it comes to Amazon. Can you give a specific example of how zigging or zagging and thinking outside of the box has led to a success in your business?
Here's something that I like to do that I don't know that a lot of other people will do. I really like to keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on. And this can be pop culture. It can be business culture. It can be whatever might interest you. And so I like this thing called Exploding Topics. It's an email newsletter, and they kind of share with you, based on data, the things that look to be getting ready to start peaking or cresting in popularity. This can be both physical products, it can be software products. And what I will do from those kind of things is I will then think about, okay, well, what things might actually start selling better on Amazon because of X. One of the things recently was it's this sort of tea-like product, but it's a really sticky, tarry type of tea. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's gone viral on TikTok. It's gone viral on Instagram and all these other places for a bunch of reasons. It makes your skin glow. It gives you energy, etc. But the tarry sticky tea is not the only way to get that kind of product. There are supplements, there are, all kinds of things. And so if you start thinking about some of the ancillary products around what might be going viral, you can often catch a wave that other people are not looking for because they're just looking for that product that, went viral on TikTok. And so while people are going toward those beauty products, those supplements, I will say, okay, well, maybe I won't make as much as they're going to, but I'm going to have a whole lot less competition if maybe I just catch the second wave of these products that are ancillary. And that's been a huge help, not just now, but throughout, years of me being on Amazon.
That's really interesting. That kind of leads me into another question about that specifically. So if you're watching trending products or products that are going viral and you're trying to catch that second wave, at what point, how do you measure when it's going to crest and start its downfall, sort of? How do you know when it's going to start losing its popularity?
It often happens when the competition starts increasing faster than what it may be right now. I try to be on the very front end of those cresting waves, and then you'll notice that, it's gotten popular enough that the number of sellers maybe goes from 5 to 25 or something like that. And that's about time for me to move on to something else, because a couple of things will happen. If the supply increases, but the demand doesn't increase, you're going to see price erosion. If that supply increases and the demand starts also coming down, you're going to see that price erosion happen even faster. And I just don't want to be a part of that. And so I typically will move on when I see those kind of things happen.
Perfect answer. Thank you. All right. So last question. We ask this of all of our guests as the very last question of their interviews. If you could give your fellow resellers one piece of advice on how they could turn their paycheck into a day check, what would it be?
I would go back to the 10,000 iteration rule. Make sure that if you can verify that something works, whether that's looking at the marketplace and seeing that there are enough other people doing this, that you can also do it, or it's proving it to yourself by flipping one or two products on Amazon. Once you have verified the model works, get through those 10,000 iterations as quickly as possible. The founder of IBM said that the fastest way to success is to double your rate of failure. And if you can do that quickly without blowing all of your available capital or seed money or startup money or whatever it is you want to call it, you will figure out the proper way to become an Amazon seller by getting through those iterations as quickly as you can. Amazing.
Thank you so much. That was the perfect answer. Again, you totally nailed this interview. We love it. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. Go ahead and pimp yourself out. Where can everyone find you online? Talk about your website, your Instagram, YouTube, whatever you want.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I am at Clear the Shelf everywhere. My blog is cleartheshelf.com. I'm at Clear the Shelf on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and even Facebook for those that are still over there. But yeah, I'm literally everywhere. And Twitter is where I'm trying to grow the most. So if you'd throw me a follow over there, I'd appreciate that.
Chris, this was amazing. So many gold nuggets. You are the best. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us. We so appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, guys. I really appreciate you.